bring this meeting to order. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please. Here.
Marianne Rosa.
Here.
Hank Mears.
Here.
Robert Casino.
Here.
Anthony DeBona.
Here.
Gary Lafferty.
Here.
Robert Bacallic. Denise Russ.
Here.
Rachel Reynolds.
Here.
Moving on, I don't believe there's any recognitions tonight, so is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of September 18th, 2023.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Under Chairman's report, we got a letter of resignation from Lisa Carew as a member of the Greater Waterbury Transit District, effective November 1st, 2023. There's no town manager report, I'm assuming. He actually ended up going home sick, I believe, today. Moving on to subcommittee reports. Do we have anything to report from the ordinance? Nothing. We'll talk about it more later.
Yeah, I'll let Attorney Jessel speak more to it, but the ordinance subcommittee met tonight, and we are recommending, based on Attorney Jessel's recommendations to us, that the council consider sending back to the committee that was formed for the elderly credit to rework it so that we most benefit the taxpayers.
Thank you, and we'll discuss that further when we get down to new business. Moving on, 9A.
I move to approve the resolution regarding participation in the Housatonic Valley Association regarding the Highland Conservation Act as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions or discussions on this? This is the presentation we had last month. Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes.
I move to approve from the general fund $13,000 from a TAF donation to the Watertown Police Department to the police department line items as follows. 1, $5,150 to the telephone line item for purchase of recorder upgrade. Item 2, $4,020 to the uniform line item for purchase of bike and honor guard uniforms. And 3, $3,800 to the law enforcement equipment line item for miscellaneous equipment to include challenge coins, Axon signal sidearms for detectives, bike helmets, and lights and radar sign poles.
Is there a second?
Second, and through the chair, if I may. Again, this is a wise allocation of fund received by the department through the administration of both the chief of police and the deputy chief of police who's in attendance. Thank you.
Is there any other
Through the
discussion?
chair,
Yep.
just for my own curiosity, what are challenge coins?
Can I add to that and just, can you explain everything in line 3?
Sure.
Okay. Good evening. So everything in line 3 for the miscellaneous items. So challenge coins are actually a coin. Once we get them, I'll bring them in. And you'll find them, police departments, military are very big on having these for the department for certain units within the department, so maybe the SWAT team would have them or the K-9 would have them specific to those units. And when you are out at events or when someone does a really good job, it's something for the chief or whoever's in charge of the unit to be able to give this coin to whoever would be the receiver of it. Sometimes it's to the community, sometimes it's to another officer, many times it's within. So if you're going to another agency, sometimes we sit on promotional exams. So we went to Bethel for a promotional exam, and as gratitude for having someone sit on their promotional exam, the Bethel chief gave our officers a challenge coin. So it's a morale booster. We had the department vote on them. They designed them themselves. So it was just something to be able to kind of bring camaraderie and have within the department. So that's challenge coins, and I'll bring one. Axon signal sidearm for detectives. So we switched over to the Axon system for our body cameras and our dash cameras. So our holsters for all of the department has a signal that when you take your gun onto the holster, it'll activate your body camera, your dash cam automatically. So the detectives have two holsters. They have one on their regular duty belt that everyone would wear, but then they have their everyday one. And we didn't want, if they're gonna respond to something immediately, they're probably not gonna have their full duty belt on. They're gonna be, you know, kind of dressed down like me, but in a suit. So we wanted those weapons, holsters to also have that, so that their body camera would be activated, and we would just be covered, because in a heat of the moment, we didn't want to worry that it didn't get turned on. And then bike helmets weren't included in the uniform full purchase. They were purchased separately for the 2 new bike officers that just went through bike training. Also lights for the bikes, because during training we realized our bikes didn't have lights. So if we want to be able to ride at dusk or at night, and they did some night riding. And then radar sign poles. The radar units that you see are able to be moved. However, there are locations that the community has requested the sign go on, but if there's no pole, we can't affix it. So like Mount Fairlane Drive, we wanted one over there. So this is an actual pole that will be put into the ground so that we could move the sign. It won't be there permanently, but the pole will be there permanently. And then we can kind of move the sign throughout town as requested by the community.
Excellent, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any
I'm just
other-
gonna stay here because I'm the rest for a while, and then.
Any other questions or? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, abstentions, motion passes.
I move to appropriate the amount of $4,402.62 from the general fund to the police overtime account. Funds reimbursed for State of Connecticut Department of Emergency Services and Protection for participation in the statewide violent crime task force.
Is there a second?
Second.
If I may,
Any discussion?
through the chair.
Yep.
There's been much in the media of late that the detective that was assigned to the statewide violent crime task force received numerous honors and awards, both statewide from the federal government and locally. That's Detective Kevin Ferrucci, and he's being returned to duty, I believe, in the Detective Bureau
Yes,
to actively investigate cases. And another officer is to be reassigned on this assignment. He may already be there.
October 30th, he'll be
Yes.
reassigned.
Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, abstentions, motion passes.
I move to authorize an appropriation in the amount of $2,485.35 from the general fund to the police overtime account. The funds were received from the state of Connecticut for participation in the Organized Crime Drug Enforcement Task Force.
Is there a second?
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, abstentions, motion passes.
I move to authorize an appropriation in the amount of $1,749.80 from the general fund to the police overtime account. Funds reimbursed from the State of Connecticut Department of Transportation for click-it or ticket enforcement.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All-
Through the chair.
Oh,
Oh, sorry. Deputy Chief, I'm just wondering how successful these programs are. I was just reading this really interesting article about life expectancy in states, and states that really enforce safety and car seatbelt laws have higher life expectancies. So when you run these organizations, do you find people without seatbelts, and then do you think it changes behavior? Is it basically a successful program?
I think it's successful in the thought that we post it prior. It's very, as you're coming through, a enforcement, you know what's going on. I think it does potentially change behavior. Is it temporary? Potentially, but those people who actually get pulled over, maybe get a ticket, I think it does change their behavior. And I think just having the officers out there, they're usually out on foot. You know, the visibility that these programs like Click It or Ticket and distracted driving bring and the awareness that they bring, if it's changing one person's behavior not to, you know, text or not to have their seatbelt, I think it is worth it. We do, in the past, we definitely have had more, but we've seen it kind of, the amount of tickets given go down in years past, but we have seen with the past few from 2022 since I've been here and the one we just did, more enforcement. So they're getting out there, they're more visible, and even if it's not infractions, just the written warnings and the contacts that we're making, and they're being positive contacts with the community.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, abstentions, motion passes. Thank you.
I move to approve the job description for the position of Police Department Records Clerk.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Yes.
Is this an added position or is someone retiring?
Everybody's got it.
One of our records clerks is actually moving over to dispatch. So she is going to be a dispatcher, and so that leaves a vacancy in the records room.
Through the chair, if I may. The
This,
position of a record clerk at the Watertown Police Department, as in other agencies, is obviously very important for two reasons. One, they are well-trained and well-versed in FOI. If the wrong information is given out, that could cause liability to the town. And if information is not given out, that would be a violation of, obviously, FOI. The records clerks that are there now, including the one that's going on to another assignment, very well trained and well versed.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
through the chair. This job description, has it been revised from the first one?
Yes, ma'am.
Many changes in it?
Oh, there we go. Yes, it has. HR and I and our current records clerk looked at it and added things that needed to be added, took away things that were definitely outdated, and made it a little bit more comprehensive of what they do, because they do a lot more than they did, you know, even in 10 years ago when this current records clerk was hired.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, abstentions, motion passes.
I move to approve the job description for the position of Economic Development Coordinator.
Is there a second?
Second,
Any discussion?
through the chair. I'm wondering about the hourly rate, and is that high enough to get somebody interested in the position?
Good evening. When the individual who had this position, it's a part-time position. He retired, so we've kept him on. He's helping us with the search. Also, the council is helping us with the search and all that there. We've compared Watertown to other surrounding towns to make sure that we are competitive and all that there. And we find that this rate is within the budgeted amount that will make us competitive.
Great, thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, abstentions, motion passes. Next on the agenda is discussion possible action on setting a public hearing date to hear public comment on the proposed amendment to town ordinances concerning elderly tax relief. And Paul, if you could come forward and summarize what you discussed with the ordinance subcommittee earlier.
Okay, so the subcommittee referred to, the tax exemption subcommittee referred to the ordinance subcommittee, a charge to essentially make the town's tax exemption for the elderly follow the state's exemption. And as I began to look at it, the state's exemption includes while the town's exemption is straight line across, no matter what you are, if you fall within an income limit, you get a tax exemption. Our highest tax exemption currently under the state, or excuse me, under the local program is $743. Under the state program, the highest amount of the exemption is $1,250, but they actually have 4 levels. And at the lower levels, the minimum levels, you could actually be giving less of a tax credit to someone at that income level than they would get under the current town ordinance. And it was thought that that's probably not what the town intended, or certainly what the town council intended. I think the town council intended, when they established this, to increase the tax exemption for our senior taxpayers. So the recommendation that I made was to go back to the original subcommittee, have them take a look at the low end of the scale, see where they wanted to put that, but then do the computation for what that cost would be to the town. And it would require changing those lower levels on each of the income level streams. So, I think that the town council's intention here is to help the seniors, and unfortunately, the state's program in part could have hurt them, some of them.
Any discussion? Would it be safe to say that the state program, when comparing what the senior tax relief subcommittee voted on and kind of the intentions behind it, most or many of the income levels and the math would have worked out that the relief would have been more, but there is one group that, depending on different criteria, it would actually reduce their
That's
credit.
correct. The state program is based on a formula that will, the intention is that we will mask that formula or follow that formula in granting the local tax exemption. And at the lower levels, again, just as an example, currently the town offers a tax exemption at the lowest income level of $743, and that's for all levels. The state exemption at the lowest acceptable level under their formula would be $350. So the exemption under the state program is half or less than half of what our current exemption is at that income level. So I think that the intention is that we bring that minimum up probably to about where we are now. But the other part of this program, and I know that it was important, that the town council will have the ability, not the requirement, but the ability to follow changes in the state law, both in the designation of the income limits and in the tax credits available.
And it's your recommendation that it go back to the senior tax
Right.
relief subcommittee to adjust those minimum?
Right, and along with that, to try to determine what the impact to the town is from granting these exemptions.
And just to be clear, this new credit is going to replace or supplant the existing one, is that right?
That's correct. The state program is mandatory, and that gets granted regardless. The local program is one that is done generally by ordinance, and we have an ordinance, and that's why it went from the subcommittee to the ordinance subcommittee, because we're going to have to modify our ordinance. What we will do is take the ordinance that currently establishes the local tax exemption and modify it, and essentially the basic thing that it will do is increase to some extent the income limits that are entitled to tax relief and the amount of that tax exemption.
And that maximum tax exemption would go from what is now as 743 to something like 1,250.
And 50. That's right. The maximum state currently, and again, the state changes their program every year. What we hope to do in this ordinance is establish an ability, not a requirement, but an ability for the town council to increase not only the credit in conjunction with what the state does, but increase the income limits in conjunction with what the state does.
Any other questions or discussion? If I recall, the ordinance subcommittee, their motion was to bring it back to the town council and the senior tax relief subcommittee. So does that mean we don't need a,
I would just make a referral. I don't think
don't
you
need a
need to have a motion on that.
we will refer that back?
As long as, without objection.
Yep, so we will refer that back to the senior tax relief if there's no objection, which there isn't. So we will move on from there. Thank you, Paul.
I move to set a special town meeting to be held on Monday, November 20th, 2023, at 7 p.m. in the town council chambers to consider an appropriation in the amount of $1 million from the ARPA funds that were set aside for contingencies to be used for the purpose of the 20% match of the Johanna Hayes grant for the Main Street Improvement Project for design, including survey costs, architect's fees, engineering fees, and other consulting fees and legal costs.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Through the chair, I have a question. Is this an additional amount than what was already allocated by the ARPA committee?
This is what's part of the ARPA funds. It was currently sitting in contingency. Part of the $3 million grant that we received from Johanna Hayes, there was a matching part of it, so this is going toward the matching. But it's
Okay.
part of the contingency that was in the ARPA funds.
So do we know how much, if any, ARPA fund money is left?
This, well, I would have to refer back to Mark, but I believe this is kind of the last bucket that's
That's
not
what I was thinking,
allocated
yeah.
somewhere.
Okay.
It was allocated, well, it was allocated as a contingency, which is now being moved to design and everything for the road projects.
Okay, because I had a question about, it may be different money, so this might not be accurate, but I thought that I understood that towns had to spend the money by January, February 2024. Does
I
that,
believe back when we first had the ARPA funds, I believe the federal government said if it was less than 10 million, I think it was 10 million, that we can vote, and it would, it wouldn't put into the general fund per se, but we did not have to spend the additional money in that time frame. I forgot the exact wording on it, but there was a certain dollar amount, and we were below that. So we met all the criteria for the government, for federal purposes.
okay. Well, I would love to know, just to double check, how much money is left, and just if there is a time limit at all, just to make sure that we use all the money that we've been given.
Any other questions?
Just a general, so this $1 million is not, I'm assuming, not just for
It's a
what it
wide
provides
ver-
here for surveys, architects, engineers, and consultants and legal fees? I don't think that, does that amount to $1 million?
I know we don't have the exact dollar amounts yet, but this was the full amount that was in the contingency. A lot of these things will go out to bid, and we have to get contracts in place for design before we know what the exact cost
I
of
think a
design.
consultant gave Mark that figure of $1 million.
He gave a wide range, I believe it was.
And that'll be, will that be presented at the special town meeting?
More detail on the
Yeah.
design. We could ask Mark, but until we hire someone for the design and how wide that scope is, we won't know what the exact bill is for design versus the actual work being done. But I think the next meeting, Mark can give a little more information on that when he's here.
Yeah, I think a little more information would be great, but I'm in support of it.
And this is just setting a meeting to,
Yeah, in
Have
support of
another
the
meeting.
special town meeting.
any further questions at this time? All in fa-
Oh.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes.
I move to approve the resolution accepting 1,500 linear feet of Caruso Drive into the Watertown roadway system.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any, actually, Paul, you want to give us a little background?
Go ahead.
It's always your fault.
There we go, sorry. The Winnemog Crusoe Drive is part of the Lake Winnemog. It was a subdivision on Lake Winnemog on Crusoe Drive. This road has been finished actually for quite a while. The contractor came in, obviously they want to get their bond released, they want to get it accepted into the road system. The engineering department has determined that the road meets all the standards for a town road. The Planning and Zoning Commission agrees that the road is ready to be accepted. I've put my imprimatur on the deed. We will get a deed to the road. We got a title search that shows that we're getting good title to the road. And the bond will be released, all but a certain amount to be set by the engineering department for a one-year warranty on the road.
Any questions?
Can you explain a little bit more about a warranty? I'm not really familiar how a warranty with the road works.
Well, if the road begins to crumble and fall apart, we can call the contractor back to fix it.
Okay, all right, that's what I thought.
For 1 year.
On the, I don't know what page it is.
By the way, the
It's-
subdivision was Waters of Winnemog. I apologize, I couldn't think of the name.
There is a portion in this report, and it says that Caruso Drive is to be used for highway purposes, reserving unto the guarantor and its successor and assigns for the benefit of all abutting lots the right to pass or repass on or cross or recross Caruso Drive. What does it mean by highway usage?
Well,
It's going to be a road.
in the,
I
in
mean, I
the,
know they're going to plow and everything, but
in the statutes, they really refer to state highways. And they call everything a state highway. For our purposes, this is a town road. It'll be maintained and kept up by the town. It'll be plowed. The school buses will now be able to travel up this road to collect school children where they couldn't do that before. And not only the people who live on that road will be able to cross and recross, but everybody in town, because it will be a public street.
okay. Appreciate the explanation, thank you.
In other words, highway doesn't mean highway.
It means road.
It's
public
not going to be
road.
limited access.
Oh, that-
That's right. And the speed limit will not be 65.
Any further questions? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes.
I move to approve the resolution authorizing the tax collection suspension list.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes.
I move to approve the resolution authorizing an appropriation in the amount of $57,659.77 for tax refunds.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes.
I move to approve the resolution authorizing the tax refunds.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes.
I move to enter into executive session along with the town council members present, the town attorney, to discuss pending litigation concerning a settlement of the M. Graff Packaging Incorporated Tax Assessment Appeal.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. We'll, what's that? No, it's on there.
Recording stopped.
We will return after the executive session.